Joshua, Yehoshua. Chapter 8. Adonai said to Yehoshua, "Don't be afraid or fall into despair. Take all the people who can fight with you, set out, and go up to Ai. Because now I have handed over to you the king of Ai, his people, his city, and his land. Do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king, but this time take its spoil and cattle as booty for yourselves. Ambush the city from behind." So Yehoshua set out for Ai with all the people who could fight. Yehoshua chose 30,000 men, the most courageous of his troops, and sent them out by night. He instructed them, "You are to lie in wait to ambush the city from behind. Stay close to the city, and all of you be ready. I and all the troops with me will approach the city, and when they come out to attack us as they did before, we will run away from them. They will chase after us until we have drawn them away from the city, because they will say, 'They're running away from us,' as they did before, so we'll run away from them. Then you will jump up from your ambush position and take possession of the city, for Adonai your God will hand it over to you. When you have captured the city, you are to set it on fire. Do according to what Adonai has said. Those are your orders." Yehoshua sent them out, and they went to the place for the ambush, staying between Beit El and Ai, to the west of Ai. While Yehoshua camped that night with the people, Yehoshua got up early in the morning, mustered his men, and went up to Ai, ahead of the people, he and the leaders of Israel. All the troops marching with him went up, advanced, arrived in front of the city, and camped on the north side of Ai, with a valley between him and Ai. Then he took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Beit El and Ai, to the west of Ai. Thus the people arrayed themselves with all the army to the north of the city, and their rear guard lying in wait to the west of the city. Yehoshua spent that night in the valley. The king of Ai saw this, so the men in the city hurried out early in the morning to battle against Israel, he and all his people, at a meeting place facing the Arava. But he was unaware that behind the city an ambush had been laid against him. Yehoshua and all Israel made as if they had been defeated before them, and ran off on the road to the desert. All the people in Ai were summoned together to pursue them, so they chased Yehoshua and were drawn away from the city. Not a man was left in Ai or Beit El who had not gone after Israel. Pursuing Israel, they left the city wide open. Then Adonai said to Yehoshua, "Point the spear in your hand toward Ai, because I will hand it over to you." Yehoshua pointed the spear in his hand toward the city. The men in ambush jumped up quickly from their place. The moment he stretched out his hand, they ran, entered the city, and captured it, and they hurried to set the city on fire. When the men of Ai looked behind them, they saw it. There was smoke from the city rising to the sky, and they had no power to flee this way or that, at which point the people who had run off toward the desert turned back on their pursuers. When Yehoshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had captured the city, and that the smoke of the city was going up, they turned back and slaughtered the men of Ai, while the others came out of the city against them too, so that they were surrounded by Israel, with some on this side and some on that side. They attacked them, allowing none to remain or escape. But they took the king of Ai alive and brought him to Yehoshua. When Israel had finished slaughtering all the inhabitants of Ai in the countryside, in the desert where they had pursued them, and they had all fallen consumed by the sword, then all Israel returned to Ai and defeated it with the sword. 12,000 men and women fell that day, everyone in Ai, for Yehoshua did not withdraw his hand, which he had used to point the spear, until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Only the livestock and the spoil of that city did Israel take as booty for themselves, in keeping with the order Adonai had given Yehoshua. So Yehoshua burned down Ai and turned it into a tell forever, so that it remains a ruin to this day. The king of Ai he hanged on a tree until evening. At sundown Yehoshua gave an order, so they took his carcass down from the tree, threw it at the entrance of the city gate, and piled on it a big heap of stones, which is there to this day. Then Yehoshua built an altar to Adonai, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal, as Moshe the servant of Adonai had ordered the people of Israel to do. This is written in the book of the Torah of Moshe, an altar of uncut stones that no one had touched with an iron tool. On it they offered burnt offerings to Adonai and sacrificed peace offerings. He wrote there on the stones a copy of the Torah of Moshe, inscribing it in the presence of the people of Israel. Then all Israel, including their leaders, officials, and judges, stood on either side of the ark in front of the Kohanim, who were Levi'im and who carried the ark of the covenant, for the covenant of Adonai. The foreigners were there along with the citizens. Half of the people were in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, as Moshe the servant of Adonai had ordered them earlier in connection with blessing the people of Israel. After this he read all the words of the Torah, the blessing and the curse, according to everything written in the book of the Torah. There was not a word of everything Moshe had ordered that Yehoshua did not read before all Israel assembled, including the women, the little ones, and the foreigners living with them. End of Joshua, Yehoshua, chapter 8.